Hi, I'm Mary Beth Temple from Hooked for Life Publishing, and I'm so glad you could join me here at Yarnspirations as we take a closer look at Chirp the Bird. Now, Chirp was made using one of our new Red Heart Amigurumi crochet kits, and everything you need to make Chirp is included in your kit. You're going to have your pattern, your main color of yarn, lots of stuffing, the contrast color for the beak, the contrast color for the eyes, a locking stitch marker, a yarn needle, and of course, your handy dandy crochet hook. So all we need you to bring is your crochet talents and a pair of sharp scissors. So let's get right into making Chirp. To start with, we're going to make a magic ring using our main color, and of course the main color is the yarn we have the whole ball of. And to make a magic ring, we're going to leave the cut end, we call that the tail, over our hand. Give yourself a little space between your index and middle finger. Bring your yarn over your index finger on a little bit of a diagonal, under your middle finger, and then over your index finger, making an X. I'm going to take my hook and put it under this leg of the X, and then grab this other leg of the X and pull it through. That is going to put a loop on my hook. Make myself a little ring right here, and I'm going to crochet with my working yarn. So the first thing I'm going to do is chain one, that holds everything together. And then I'm going to put 6 single crochets in the ring. So to do that, I'm going to insert my hook into the ring, yarn over and draw up a loop, yarn over and draw through 2. So the same way you would make a single crochet any other place, except you're starting in the ring, not in a stitch. Let's see that again. Insert our hook in the ring, yarn over and draw up a loop, yarn over and draw through 2. So that's 2 single crochet made, and we want a total of 6. Once I have my 6 stitches made, I'm going to pull this little tail out of the ring. There we go. I'm going to hold on to my stitches, not too tightly. I want this strand to be able to travel. And I'm going to pull, 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 pull into a circle. And you can really give that a big serious tug. So now my stitches are all ready to be worked in around. And right now I'm going to take this opportunity to put my locking stitch marker on the last stitch of the round. And every time we do another round, we're going to move that stitch marker to the last stitch, because that is the way to know where you are and what you need to do next. So that's really important. For round 2, it says increase in each stitch around. And to increase, no matter where it is, all we're going to do is insert our hook into that stitch, make a single crochet, and then we're going to put a second single crochet in that same stitch. So we're taking 1 stitch and turning it into 2. Now sometimes getting into that first one can be a little fiddly, but that's okay. We're not going to get excited, so we're going to do that all the way around. Single crochet in the next stitch, and then single crochet in the same stitch. Here we are at the end of round 2. For round 3, it says single crochet in next stitch, increase in the next stitch. And that's in brackets, and it tells us we're going to work the instructions in the brackets 6 times. So I'm going to do this all the way around. Single crochet in one stitch, and then 2 in the next. 1 in the next, 2 in the next, until I get all the way to the end of the round. Round 3 is completed, and you can see I'm moving my stitch marker up at the end of every round. For rounds 4, 5, and 6, you're doing the same general idea, but there'll be a different number of stitches between the increases. So the increases are the same, and they're the same number of them. You're just going to increase the number of stitches between, so you can just follow along with the pattern. Round 7 says single crochet in each stitch around, so that's no increasing, no decreasing, just 1 single crochet in every stitch. Rounds 8 and 9 are increase rounds, and rounds 10 to 15 you just single crochet in each stitch around for those 6 rounds. We call that working even. So I'm going to put those rounds on, and I'm going to come back and meet you to learn about the single crochet decrease. And I also wanted to take this opportunity to let you know this is probably a good time to get this opening tail, thread it through your tapestry needle, and weave in that end. You want to anchor that a little bit, because as the piece gets bigger, it's going to be really hard to reach in here. So it's a good time to do it now. Now there's not going to be a whole lot of wear of on this particular area, so you don't have to go crazy weaving it in. But what I like to do is just come behind the stitches, and you can see I don't want to see anything on the front. I'm just going through the back of the stitches just a couple of times, weave that in and out, and then trim it. So I'm going to go ahead and get you up to round 16. Here we are at the end of round 15. Moving on to round 16, we made increases here because we wanted our piece to get bigger. And we worked even here because we wanted our piece to start to curve in and not get any bigger or smaller. But now we want to make some decreases. We're going to make sure that our head, we were here, then we were here, and now we're here. So we're decreasing to get down to the neck opening. So for round 16, it says single crochet in each of next 6 stitches. 5, 6, and then we're going to do a single crochet decrease. And to do a single crochet decrease, you're going to insert your hook in the next stitch and yarn over and draw up a loop like you would for a regular single crochet. Then you're going to insert your hook in the next stitch and yarn over and draw a loop. So you have 3 loops on your hook. 1, 2, 3, yarn over, draw through all 3. So you've taken 2 stitches and turned it into 1. Let's see that again. We're going to single crochet in each of the next 6 stitches. 2, 5, 6, and a single crochet decrease. Insert your hook in the next stitch, yarn over and draw up a loop. You have 2 loops on your hook. Insert your hook in the next stitch, yarn over and draw up a loop. You have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and draw through all 3. So we're going to keep going around until the end of the round, and that will take us from 48 single crochet down to 42. Then for rounds 17, there'll be 5 stitches between the decreases. For round 18, there'll be 4 stitches between the decreases. For round 19, there'll be 3 stitches between the decreases. And then I want to talk about stuffing. Here we are at the end of round 19. I'm going to extend that loop so I don't lose it. And it's telling us to begin stuffing, and the reason why is because as the opening gets smaller, it's hard to get the stuffing in there. And I know that this does not look like a whole ton of stuffing, but once you open that package up and the air hits it, you can see already it's beginning to expand, so you have plenty of stuffing. So what I like to do is just grab a handful, and I like to sort of pull it apart a bunch, make sure there's no big clumps in there. And then I'm going to start putting my stuffing in. It will compress, so you can really put a little work into getting a lot of stuffing in there. You're not going to run out. After I get this as fluffy as I would like it to be, and I'm remembering that the head is the biggest part, so it's okay if I use a little more than half the stuffing. You're going to go ahead and finish the next 2 rounds. That's round 20 and 21. And then it says fasten off, leaving a long tail for sewing, because later on we're going to have to sew the head to the neck. Here I am at the end of round 21, and I have taken my stitch marker out and left a longish tail for sewing. And I'm just going to go ahead and pull out that loop. Now I do have the room and the time. I can put some more stuffing in there if I want, but the reason again that we started it earlier is to make sure that we could get that stuffing all the way down in there. Now we have to make the body, 2 wings, a tail, and a beak, and we're going to make them all the same way that we began our head. So I'm going to have my magic ring. Here's my yarn over my fingers. I'm making an X over my index finger and my middle finger, going under the top leg of the X, grabbing the other top leg of the X, and there's my loop on my hook. Chain 1, and for the body we're going to put 6 single crochet in the ring. And once I have my 6 single crochet in the ring, I'm going to find that tail and give it a tug, putting my 6 single crochet into a ring. I'm going to remember to take my locking stitch marker and mark the last stitch that I made and move it up for every round. And then depending on which body part I'm making, I'm going to follow along with the instructions. I'm working on the body. It tells me to increase in each stitch around, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So you're going to make the body and stuff it. You're going to make the 2 wings, the tail, and the beak. And then we're going to come back and talk about assembly and embroidery. I wanted to point out in the second half of the body of Chirp the Bird, unlike the other parts that we're making, or the head, which we've already made, the decreases are not evenly spaced around, and that's because we want to make this asymmetrical shape. So I just wanted to point that out because it's unusual compared to the other pieces that we're doing, and just wanted to let you know that that is absolutely correct if you're following right along in the pattern. So for example, when I get to round 8, it says single crochet decrease 4 times. So we're going to make 4 decreases right in a row. Here's 1, where other places we have had decreases or increases come to that. Up until this point, it's been a decrease with stitches between it and the next one, or an increase with stitches between it and the next one. So when you get to the second half of the body, you really have to pay some attention to the pattern because they're not evenly spaced all the way around. All right, it's time to talk about the assembly. Now, the first thing we're going to do is sew the head and the body together, and it recommends that we line up the beginning and ends of the round. So that's going to be right there. So that's where my head began and ended, and here is my body where that began and ended. So I'm going to grab one of these long tails and just thread it through my tapestry needle. And I'm going to sew the 2 together with a whip stitch. So what I like to do is I'm going to grab a stitch down here and go all the way through, and then a stitch up here and go all the way through. It gets a little easier once they're lined up. There we go. All right. Now we're moving on to the next stitch on the bottom and the next stitch on the top. Next stitch on the bottom, next stitch on the top, and we're going to do that all the way around, and we're going to keep poking that stuffing in where it belongs. And if we get near the end and it looks like we need a little more stuffing, well, now is the perfect time to put it in. So here we are. You can see our little whip stitch going on in there that attached our 2 pieces. And I want to talk just briefly about weaving in ends on a project like this. So I'm going to go through the stitches trying to keep my needle towards the back. And this is more of an art than a science. You don't have to go in any particular order. You're just trying to get that thread anchored, that yarn anchored, so it doesn't come out. And then what I like to do, you don't have to do it this way, but it's how I like to do it. I will actually stick my needle into the amigurumi and have it come out an inch or two away, what it does is it tucks that tail into the stuffing and makes it that much less likely that that tail is going to pull out. If you tug it like I did and cut it, then the cut end recedes right into the amigurumi and you can't see it. So I'm going to weave this end in, and then we're going to sew on a wing. All right, for the wings, it says position wings on either side of body towards the back between rounds 11 and 12 using long tails that you left when you finished your piece. Sew them into place. So this is another instance where I'm going to grab the cut end of my thread and just run it through the tapestry needle. Now what I did to make sure that I put them where I wanted them is I used my locking stitch marker to mark the round where I want to attach my wings. So I'm just going to put them right there. I'm going to take my locking stitch marker out because I don't need it now. And again, if you want to put your wings in a different place, if you would like your little bird to look different, that's okay. Each little amigurumi is going to be its own lovely self, and there are no crochet police who are going to come to your house and tell you that you did it wrong. So what I like to do is catch the stitch on the body and then go through both layers of the wing. Catch a stitch on the body. Let me get my tail out of the way here. Both layers of the wing. And I like to, again for these, if you pull the two sides a little closer to each other, it helps the wings stand out, which I like the look of that. So there is my little wing. I know I'm laughing. I just think these things are so cute. Can't stand it. So I'm going to go ahead and weave that end in. So here's my one little wing. I would sew my other wing to match, and my little tail right here, right where the body sort of points out. And I want to talk about embroidering on the eyes. So it's telling me to take my color B, which is my black yarn, and split it into two, because otherwise it's a little thick. So I'm just splitting it in half at the top, and I'm gonna untwist it, and then it'll split into two threads. Just have to keep untwisting. All right, and we only need one of these, so I'm going to thread this through my tapestry needle. And then it says, embroider each eye along 6 stitches, leaving 4 stitches between them on round 13. So again, do you have to absolutely count exactly the way we did? Not really. But if I wanted to, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So this is round 13 right here. And let's see, my wings are here. So I think I want to be in a little more. So how I anchor this thread is the same way we were weaving in by running our needle up the back of the stitches. I'm doing the same thing here. So I'm catching the back of the stitches. I can't really see, but I can feel it. And then I'm going to pull it out here. The trick here, you don't want to tie a big messy knot. You want those little cut ends to go just inside. So you have to be careful at this point that you don't pull so tightly that it comes out. So let's see. And again, this is more of an art than a science. You can do whatever makes you happy. So I'm going to make these little diagonals on the outside. There's 1. There's 2. And it said to do this over 6 stitches. So let's see. If I want it to make the little V like it does in the picture, I'll count 1, 2, 3 and put it down in the row below. And then let's see, and then 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, back up where we were. No. There we go. So you know, if you put this in and you don't love it, you can just take your tapestry needle off the yarn and unpick it one little bit at a time. All right, and now it's telling us to leave 4 stitches in between. Was that correct? 4 stitches between them. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. Start my other eye here. One, 2, 3, and down 1. And then 1, 2, 3. Back up where we were. And then I'm going to put my little V's that we made earlier. I'm going to put one on the outside. Put that here and then weave it in the same way we did before. I'm going to go behind some of those stitches and catch the back. And then through the stuffing and out a couple of inches away. Give it a little tug. And there's my eyes. So you're going to take your little pink beak and sew that right there. I want to sew the beak into place, and the pattern tells me to sew it between rounds 13 and 15. So I put my locking stitch marker right there for a minute, just so I could see exactly where I wanted my beak to go. So I want to center it between the 2 eyes and have it approximately on the 13th round. Now, if you want to change that up a little bit, that is entirely fine. So then I'm going to grab a stitch on the head and then come up underneath both legs of the stitch on the beak. I want to pull that very tight because I don't want to see the yarn I'm stitching with. I want that to sort of hide. So I'm going to go again, grab the next stitch on the head, and then come under both legs of the stitch. Now there were 6 stitches in my beak, so probably I'm going to make 6 stitches sewing it on. And then when I get to the end, I'm going to weave that tail in the way we weaved the other tails in for the embroidery or perhaps for the wing. And trimming off the excess. And here is Chirp's beak. The next thing we're going to do is put on the head feathers. To make our feathers, it says cut 3 short strands from main color of yarn. So what I did is I used the little bits and bobs that were left over from my sewing up. So these 3 are more or less the same size, and I'm not going to go too crazy about it. So there's my 3 little strands. And then here is the top of my little bird, and I'm going to go down 1 stitch and up in the next. And I'm going to use that crochet hook to pull those strands through on the fold it in half. So I'm going to catch them in here and pull them through. Okay, let me get rid of the hook. Now once I have them through, I'm going to open this up. Alright, I'm going to take my cut ends and put them through my fold. And pull, 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 pull. So now they're on there. I'm going to trim them so they're all the same length. That's probably a little long. Let's cut them a little bit shorter. And now I'm going to untwist all the plies. The individual strands that make up each yarn, those are called plies. So I'm just going to untwist them so they look like feathers instead of yarn. I could get a little comb and brush them out if I wanted to. Use my tapestry needle if I wanted to. There's all different ways to do it, but basically what I want to do is untwist all of this so that it looks fluffy. So here is our little friend, Chirp the Bird, that we worked on camera. And here is the completed one I made earlier. I hope you had a wonderful time hanging out with us today and making your own Chirp the Bird. Once again, I'm Mary Beth Temple from Hooked for Life Publishing. Thanks for joining us here with this Red Heart Amigurumi Kit at Yarnspirations. We hope to see you again real soon. Bye-bye.